Welcome to the Ultimate Welcome to the Ultimate Webmasters podcast. Sorry, that's my Felix Turkleton voice from D&D we played last night, and I just can't stop. Hello everybody. So I'm Jack McDade, and I've always wanted to do a podcast. Well, I've done podcasts before, but I didn't keep up with them. So my problem with doing podcasts and podcasts in general is they're just not about stuff I want to listen to, and they're way too long. And I could never decide on just one thing to do a podcast on. Like, I don't want to just talk about the web or design or development. And I don't want to just do a podcast about some hobby I have or just interview other people. And I just want to talk about things that I'm interested in that I think you might be as well. Stuff I've learned, things that I've done, highlight other people's accomplishments and show off some other cool stuff that maybe you haven't seen. Hobbies, retro stuff, 80s, just all of it. At work, play, and every day, just stuff. Okay, so my goal with this podcast is to keep it relatively short, 20, 22 minutes, something you can listen to on your average commute. And I'll try and keep the work and practical stuff first. So if you don't care about whatever I'm talking about, like Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons or video games or 80s stuff, just listen to the hot tips in the beginning. And maybe that's something that you'd find value in. Okay, so that's my idea. That's my pitch. If you find that you enjoy this podcast, please let me know. Subscribe and do all that kind of stuff. Tell people about it. But otherwise, I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm going to just get out of my own way. All right, so if you don't know me, I am an entrepreneur, designer, developer. I've built Statamic, definitely not by myself, but back in 2012, I did kind of start it and have brought on some really smart people over the years that work on it with me. Statamic is a flat file content management system. It is a WordPress alternative. It is in the same technically competitive space as giants like Squarespace and Wix, but it is not a drag and drop builder. It is more designed for bespoke websites. So if you're somebody who has an agency or builds websites and wants to create a nice control panel, like that's what it does. Okay, so I don't want to talk a lot about that. It's something I tweet about. If you want to learn about Statamic, go to statamic.com, STATAMIC probably.com, and follow us on Twitter. And it's 95% of what I spend my time on. However, I can't just do one thing. I find that I need creative outlets, and you probably feel the same way. We all need a little side project. We all need hobbies. We all need things to satisfy our creative itches. And I do design work for different people when those opportunities arrive and the project makes sense. So I've done work. I designed the Laravel.com website, Forge that has been redesigned, Envoyer, a couple of the Laracon sites, the current Laracon.us site, which is this kind of rad 80s, 90s pixel art kind of site that was a lot of fun to work on. I've done a lot of other interesting side projects and built apps, but most of the time now it's Statamic and then these kind of pet projects, or as the case may be, podcasts. And so, I'm a designer and a developer. I used to write a lot more PHP, although lately with the business, I do a lot more marketing and writing and kind of UX design and direction, although I do get my hands dirty because we're still a small team. And so, that's my experience. I've started the web world, back in GeoCities days in the late 90s, building Star Wars fan sites. And, through college, did freelance work on the side and built, $250 websites and all that kind of stuff back in, 2000, 2001. And after graduating from college with a marketing degree and going, God, I really don't want to do marketing because what they just taught me sucks, I ended up in a web company in 2005, 2006, I guess it was. And so worked there for a couple of years and built a lot of websites and like web projects and a lot of HTML emails for companies like, Disney or, Capital One. It's hard to remember these big, giant massive campaigns. Wrote a lot of HTML, wrote a lot of CSS, a lot of inline styles back then, and then kind of bounced around to a couple other agencies, built a lot of websites, and decided to go out on my own. And freelanced for a while doing expression engine sites and just cranking out just tons and tons of site designs and sites. And I've just built hundreds of sites in my career now over the last decade plus. And that is my background. Kind of the last 4 or 5 years, especially with Statamic, the last 7 years, I guess, more into Laravel applications, but still, this building sites for local clients has always been a kind of sweet spot of mine. And so that is where I come from as background, and the experience that I have is in doing that kind of thing. A lot of these projects are not, massive multi-million dollar, budget breaking projects. They're just good work for good local people. And I think that's what a lot of us do. And so, hopefully what I have to say has value. Okay, so I'm a huge 80s nerd. Like when Stranger Things came out, I just went nuts. It just rekindled this whole kind of forgotten side of, my childhood. Although, I was born in 83. I did grow up in the early 90s, but there's that bleed over, that crossover time where, things started to get more rad and colorful, and that crossover from the late 80s, early 90s is just like, I don't see myself ever growing out of absolutely loving wild, outrageous, and outlandish design. And it's thankfully, at least for now, it is super popular, and it's cool again to 80s and 90s-ify your company, your branding, your designs. Like we're seeing the new Captain Marvel website, marvel.com/Captain Marvel, is like this crazy GeoCities style animated GIFs and Comic Sans MS and like embossed buttons, and it's outrageous, and it's awesome. I did the Laracon, I mentioned a few minutes ago. I did the Laracon site, and it is this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game inspired site, and it's pixel art, and the graphics are blurry, and everything's a GIF file with 16 colors, and it's just really fun and creative. But when people put these sorts of designs out, these projects, there's always a little bit of confusion and blowback from those people who maybe didn't grow up in that era and don't understand, why does this look terrible? People under 18 may still be your target market, and they don't get the references to the animated construction man GIF, or the spinning what is it, like police siren, and all these different kind of tropes from our youth, or like the early internet. And I think it's important to think about when you can go full retro, and when maybe you should just kind of relax a little bit and just tease around the edges with some aesthetics, if that's what you want to do. And so, I think a good rule of thumb is if you need to convince people that it's real, that it is something that they need to spend money on, if you're going to be taking credit cards on that website, you probably don't want it to look like maybe a joke. So the Captain Marvel site is perfect. You can get tickets, but they're not relying on this site in order to promote the movie. I think the fact that this site looks the way it does actually does a great job in promoting the movie, but it's not the only way they're promoting the movie. And so I think the Captain Marvel site is great. It's a great example of when to go full retro. Adidas did kind of a landing page for their young sneakers that was the same style, and they took it down pretty fast. I don't know the story behind it. I tried to figure it out and see what happened to it. I could find it. I couldn't even find it on archive.org. It was just gone, disappeared. But there is a reference to it on awards.com, awwards.com/site/Adidas-young. You can see this site, and it is pretty rad and retro. I'm not going to lie. It's cool. But I can't help but wonder if they missed the audience. Like if their target audience is 24 and under, maybe they don't understand. Maybe it wasn't selling. And I think you need to consider your audience, and if the design is going to negatively affect your ability to sell the product or the service, you might not want to go full retro. I think the Laracon site worked because, quite frankly, Laracon has proven that when you launch a new Laracon conference, it's the Laravel PHP conference that happens every year, they sell a lot of tickets. No matter what the site looks like, I mean, it could just be like a buy link in the top left corner, and it would probably still sell out fine. I mean, it would be, people would be like, what the heck? Why does it look like this? But it would still sell. So it's okay to take a risk and do something creative like this pixel art site, because even if people don't love it, and thankfully a lot of people did, but even if they didn't, it would still function, right? You could still link to the checkout site, and people, even if they might not understand it, at least they know, well, the conference is still a conference and I'm still going no matter what. So, you got to assess that opportunity risk and will this pay off for me? Don't just design full retro because you want to. Don't scare away your audience because you like something. You might want to scale it back. And so if you go to statamic.com, I did not go full retro. I mean, there's still loud and kind of outrageous colors, like we use pink and purple, but they're not everywhere. There's a hero image and then there's some accents, but the content is readable. The typography is clean, it's responsive and looks good on mobile and everything. So I think it's important to remember your audience and who and how long this thing is going to live for. Like Lyricon is going to get redesigned next year. I don't imagine it to look anything like that next year, and it just kind of disappears and goes into the archives, and that's okay. So yeah, just consider your audience when it comes to deciding if you want to go full retro. Okay, that's enough work. It's playtime. I guess it was about a month or two ago, a buddy of mine asked me if I wanted to play the Star Wars living card game. And I was like, heck yeah, I've never played that. That's awesome. When I was a kid, I was really into the old Star Wars trading card game by Decipher, which was, kind of like Magic the Gathering, which I also liked and played with a buddy. Super fun game, and it just gave me all those feels. So we played the game. I had a lot of fun. It's kind of long. It took a long time to play. It was pretty complicated. And as I'm sitting there, I'm going, man, I loved how simple Magic was. And Magic has been around since 1993, and it's like 25 years old now. Maybe it was 1994. Magic the Gathering is still around and is still going stronger than ever. I mean, can you think about what it must take, that design team to reconcile 25 years of rules and evolution and card design? And I'm just blown away by Wizards of the Coast. They're a fantastic company. I've been into Dungeons and Dragons for a couple of years. I played in college, I played when I was younger, before I even know what it was. Dungeons and Dragons, we just played role-playing games, and you roll a stat sheet and you make up a story. It's like that same idea. And just, it's fantastic this day and age to do something that is social, that is away from your screens, that has, some depth to it, some complexity, but at the same time is not so over the top that doesn't put the complexity out front. And that's one of the great things about Magic. Like, there are not that many rules. Like, I can explain the rules of Magic the Gathering in like 5 minutes or less, but you could spend thousands of hours analyzing deck breakdowns and, like looking at different builds and experimenting and tooling with ways to, compete against other types of decks. And the fact that that much complexity is under the hood, but it's abstracted from the actual core game mechanics, is just, it's so cool. And it lets the game evolve and change. They have this idea of, formats, right? So you have standard format and you have modern format. Standard is like the last 2 years worth of expansions, and they do, I think it's like 2 or 3 expansions a year. And so the last 2 years, so maybe 5 or 6 expansions, are the only cards you're allowed to play. Or anything that's been, reprinted, like lands and stuff from previous sets are still legal. And so you have this game that looks very different as time goes on, but still the same game under the hood. And so you have modern, which kind of spans like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years worth of cards back to like this major, rules revision. And then there's legacy, which kind of is everything. And there's these different ways to play with your same cards. And I got to respect a company that can keep that going and make it exciting, and that they find new ways to evolve a storyline, even though, through a set of 60 cards in a deck. And they've got these crazy stories that are packed in the flavor text. Man, it's just, I've just nerded out so hard, and it's been a lot of fun getting into this game. one of my good buddies, Brandon Kaz, gave me his old collection. He's like the nicest guy I know. He's like, I don't play my Magic cards anymore. Take my Magic collection. And he, give me this box of like 1,000 cards. And it was just, I spent a whole night just going through them. And I found some cards that I had when I was a kid that, I don't know what happened to them. They're gone. These old classics, Torture Rack and Sarah Angel. And man, this game just makes me happy. And I got some decks and started playing with my kids. My 6-year-old, he's almost 7, and my 9-year-old, we play almost every single day, and they get it. They get the rules, and they may not understand the greater meta complexity if you're trying to play competitively, but I can just hand them a deck and they'll pretty much figure it out based on the rules on the cards, and kind of the core game rules. And I think that's just awesome. I've thought a lot about what makes Magic a great game and why it's lasted so long and how it has innovated so much. And I think I would attribute it to, obviously there's a great team behind it, but to constraints and to embracing the constraints. So Magic at its core is a really simple fundamental game. You have a deck of 60 cards. You get to draw one card per turn. You can play one land per turn, which is like magical currency, which you can use to spend, and play spells. Spells may summon a creature, they may deal damage to the other player, and then as soon as the other player loses 20 life points, the game's over, you win. And so each one of those aspects of the game has become an entire mechanism. So you have 20 life points that you have to work with. And so you're trying to knock the other players down. And so, the game is innovated and there's ways of using your life points as resources. Like you can deal damage to yourself to deal damage to someone else, or deal damage to yourself to draw cards. Your creatures that are out that can fight for you can be used as resources. You can tap them or basically spend them, use them so they can't attack, and do something. The decks in your the cards in your deck rather, the cards in your graveyard, if you play certain types of decks, become a resource where the number of creatures in your graveyard, gives you an ability, or the number of cards that have been exiled from the game give you a bonus. And by not adding all these new rules to the game, but rather finding creative ways to use what's inside the game already, it has made it so much more interesting and has made it more approachable, I think, for new players. If you are at all familiar with the Magic world, you would realize, or that it is an extremely complicated game once you get into the competitive landscape. But that shouldn't scare you away from actually just trying it out casually with some friends. I honestly recommend it. If you wanted to do that, you can just buy a Planeswalker deck, and I'll throw a link in the show notes to Amazon. But it's just a pre-built deck of 60 cards that you can just immediately start playing. So you can grab a deck or two and play with some friends and see what you think. It's if you find that you really like it, you're going to want to change cards out and stuff. But there's plenty of YouTube videos and, blogs and all sorts of stuff that kind of teach you to build decks. It is not expensive if you're not playing competitively. For $8, you can build a really fun deck, which I did for my kids. And then, I built a couple decks for myself, and it's been a lot of fun. So, yeah, I don't know. I just look at the things that I had a lot of fun with as a kid and see which ones have survived the test of time, and I'm exploring them again, like Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering. Okay, it's time for an internet hot tip. So if you watch a lot of YouTube channels where you have to deal with hey, what's up, guys? Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, what's up, guys? It's Scares here. And hey, what's up, guys? It's Scares here. And over and over and over again. One, why are you watching them? But two, if you really like that content, did you know that you can just press the 1 key to jump 10% of the way into the video, or 9 to jump 90%? Each number on the keyboard jumps that many percent into the video, just like that. And so I find most of these videos, just tap 1 and boom, you're off and going right into the meat of the video without having to deal with, hey, what's up, guys? Or, oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Because it's so painful. I can't deal with it. It's time for a shout out. I want to highlight something every episode in this podcast. Something or someone. There's always a someone behind something, right? I'm really highlighting someones. And today I want to highlight Miguel Piedrafita. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. Miguel is a 16-year-old developer who he's contributed to over 500 open source projects. He's built several applications. He has free SaaS apps. He has a news list. He has a blog. He writes regularly. He has a Patreon and a Discord where he previews his posts every week to everybody and gets feedback. This kid is prolific. He's 16. He is going places. He has the work ethic. He has the drive. He has the need to create. And I can't wait to see what he does. His website is miguelpiedrafita.com, and I will link that in the show notes. Check out his work. He's a great designer, or he's great at finding good designs and like implementing them in a nice way. But he's got great content out there. He builds a lot of great Laravel stuff. He retweets everything I say on Twitter, which is humbling. He's just a great kid, and I think you should follow him and you should check out his stuff. And I support him on Patreon because I love seeing people with that sort of passion. So feel free to do the same. You don't need to support my show. Go support someone else. Support somebody who is building their audience. You don't need to support me. I mean, you can buy Statomate. That's fine. But go support Miguel. That's going to do it. If you've got questions for me or anything you'd like to see me talk about, or have someone you want me to check out and possibly do a shout out about, just send me an email, shout@jackmcdade.com, and I would love to hear from you. So take care and God bless. I am your host and sarcastically self-proclaimed ultimate webmaster, Jack McDade. Music by Joseph McDade, my brother. You can check him out on josephmcdade.com, where he gives away great music like this stuff that you can use in your stuff. And also thanks to transistor.fm for hosting this podcast.